The year is 2038, and net neutrality has been dead for almost 2 decades. But a rebellious group managed to travel back to 2017. First story, by Founders Feast. The suite on the 6th floor of the Trump International Hotel, Washington, D.C., was decorated in chestnut and tan. The headboard of the king-sized bed was carved as if it was a coat of arms of some legitimate monarch, and was trimmed with fake gold, which poorly matched the Kremlin-red velvet throw pillows. Like the room's single, useless accent wall, the curtains were a brutal cerulean, suggesting a space that conceals more deception than the dark seabed of a Vladivostok harbor. In all, the suite was reminiscent of something a Tsar might have once maintained, perhaps as quarters for secondary guests in some eastern palace. Nevertheless, on that particular Pennsylvania Avenue afternoon, Ajit Pai, FCC chairman, felt anything but secondary. Ajit rolled over on the sheets, letting his chest hair peek out from his robe, and then stretched all the way from his scapula to his calves. Laying beside him, Lowell C. McAdam, CEO of Verizon Communications, picked another chocolate-covered strawberry from the bowl. He placed it in Ajit's mouth, letting his hand linger on his former general counsel's lips just a moment too long. "You know I love dessert," Ajit said, "but I hope you have something else for me." "I don't recall you ever being so direct before, my sugar plum," Lowell returned, clasping Ajit's buttocks. "Maybe those FTC boys go easy on you," Ajit answered, pulling away, but only a little, only for show. "But I'm from the FCC, so you better show me the cash first." Lowell sighed. He spun off the bed. He sauntered over to the bureau and picked up a leather suitcase with 2 silver latches. Lowell then showed Ajit what was inside. Stacks and stacks of crisp $100 bills. "Just to be clear," Lowell explained, "every last cent of this is to repeal net neutrality. You're giving me yourself for free." Lowell pounced down on top of Ajit, groping at him the way a crude man only does to a woman of the night. Ajit loved feeling bought and paid for. He giggled and squealed, and the 2 men kissed. But suddenly, the passion and privacy of the suite was shattered by a flash of light and a thunderous clap. The hideous furniture Ivanka had wanted any and all credit for rattled along the carpet. When the 2 lovers and conspirators regained their composure, there was a strange young man and woman standing before them, wearing tattered jeans and leather vests. They both had AK-47s draped over their shoulders. The woman punched Ajit hard in the jaw. "Are you Ajit Pai, the FCC chairman, or Ajit Pai, the cricketer?" she demanded. Her face was stained with dirt. "What? Who are you? Where did you come from?" Ajit asked, favoring his chin, his whole body quivering. "FCC chairman or cricketer?" the woman shouted again, brandishing the AK-47 at the frightened, half-naked businessman and lobbyist, pretending to be a guard of the public interest. "FCC!" Ajit replied. "Yes, I'm with the FCC!" "You know why she had to ask that, you scumbag?" the rough man began. "Because the only other Ajit Pai that's famous was a frickin' cricket player. And where we come from, Wikipedia pages take 20 minutes to load unless you pay an extra $9.99 a month. So, all we really had to go on was the frickin' disambiguation page. You know how hard it is to tell an artificially intelligent time machine where you want to go when all it can access are the dadgum disambiguation pages?" The man picked Ajit up and threw him on the bed. He did the same to Lowell. "Your little side deal here," the woman explained to the telecommunications executives. "Let me tell you how this goes down. First, you repeal net neutrality for some chump change kickback. Then, of course, all the jerk ISPs start tacking on surcharges for people to get on pretty much all the good websites, until nobody could afford more than one. So, the same thing happened that always happens when you force people to choose teams. Society broke apart completely. Soon, the YouTubian Republic was throwing Molotov cocktails at the Facebook moms, and the Netflix Terrier were being rounded up by the Instagram gang. Nobody talks to each other or shares anything, and it is terrible. Ajit and Lowell looked to the door and windows, thinking of any possible escape. But there was none. They were hostages of an uncaring power who had no concern for their well-being. But there was one silver lining to not having the web you're used to, the rough man continued. Without an open internet, nobody else got to find out that we finally cracked how to build a fully operational time machine. We didn't tweet about it or do a single AMA. Because why would we? There'd be nobody online to see it. That means we were able to skip through all the swamp mud and just travel right back here, right to this moment before you two messed around with each other and then messed around with the whole country. Lowell stammered. Are you going to kill us? The time travelers laughed, then stuck peculiar glowing orbs on the lovers' chests. No, we're not going to kill you, the woman replied. Instead, we're just going to send you boys into the future you're trying to create. And we'll stay back here in 2017 when things were at least only halfway terrible. What? No, you can't! Ajit shouted. Sure we can, the man told him. Because time travel has no regulations. I thought you loved it when technology has no regulation. The woman pushed a button on a strange remote. The suite filled with another flash of light. Ajit and Lowell embraced, and then they vanished. Second story by Ork Dovahkiin. When I was young, my mother would often tell me stories at bedtime. Stories of the internet when she was a little girl. She told of how it was beautiful. How the memes ran free, without restraint, without obstacle. I didn't know what had happened to this internet back then. I was too young to understand the way things were now. But as I grew older, my mother began to tell me new stories. She told me how the beautiful internet she had once called home came under attack. With sadness in her eyes, she recounted the doomed fight the denizens of the internet waged. She told of how her people fought against the forces that threatened the very essence of their home, net neutrality. I listened, eyes wide, as she reminisced about the days when the feed was clogged with red boxes, and how the dwellers of every corner of the internet came out and fought for their homeland. They fought with the facts, and with outrage, and pitchforks, and memes. They fought valiantly, with courage and honor. But in the end, they couldn't save the internet. Net neutrality became nothing but a distant memory, and the internet she had loved was gone. Slowly but surely, all that which made the internet beautiful was stripped away until there was nothing left. The heroes failed, and darkness prevailed. Today, the internet is but a shell of its former self, and we live in despair. There are no more cat videos, no more GIFs. All memes are dead memes. The world is cold, and all that is left for us humans is to suffer in the dark. At least, that's what I thought. But then I learned that there were still some people fighting, even today, when the internet as it used to be is but a distant dream. The rebels know there is no hope of saving the internet now. They can't bring something back from the dead. But what if we could go back in time, with the knowledge of what happened in the past, to save the internet from ruin, before it was already gone? Many years have passed since that cursed year, 2017. Enough time now that we have the technology to go back to that time when the internet had not yet died. Now, I am part of the small elite group of rebels that is traveling back to that year. We know that the people responsible for killing the internet have caught wind of what we're doing, that our time is nearly up, that this mission is our best and only chance to save that which our parents loved and cried for. I swear to myself, to my mother, and to all those who still hold on to hope, that we will save the internet. We will not fail. Third story by A Significant Lack Of. Just as Donald was about to press the button that would trigger the bomb that would level the FCC headquarters, he heard a voice. Named for Donald Trump I, inaugurator of the great American monopoly, Donald had never heard English spoken with an accent anything like the one the voice carried. "I'm gonna need you to put the trigger down, mate." There was a distinct menace in the tone, and a confidence of someone who is usually obeyed. Donald hesitated, wondering if this was one of those illegal aliens people talked about from the time before the walls. People always said aliens talked funny, but few people in 2038 had heard one. "I dunno think he understood ya," a second voice muttered, before a third voice exclaimed, "Be a good chap and place the trigger on the bed. We won't kill you unless you refuse." Donald whirled around, expecting to see little gray men or green sludge monsters. The sight that greeted him was significantly more perplexing. 3 men, well-dressed, well-armed. At least Donald assumed the things they were pointing were weapons. And one of them carried something that Donald had never seen before. A smallish, rectangular object, which had moving pictures on the top face. The person holding it was jabbing at it and running his fingers across the images. The first voice spoke again, coming from the closest man, who waved his gun to get Donald's attention. "For the last time, put down the bloomin' trigger!" As Donald slowly complied, he objected as non-threateningly as he could. "You don't know what you're doing. I traveled here from 2038. Time travel. Real, genuine time travel. And do you know why? It's to stop the repeal of net neutrality." A touch of desperation crept into his tone as he inched his hand back towards the trigger mechanism. "Aye, laddie, we know why you're here. We just can't let you do it." "But why?" Donald wailed. "The internet is useless when you have to go through a paywall for each leg of every journey your data packets have to go through. Did you know that the top course at every major university is the state-sponsored Bachelor or Trumpian Communication Systems? Any search that needs to be completed in under a week requires an advanced degree specialist." "Well, here's the thing, old chap." Voice number 3 again. "You see, we come from 2038 as well. We represent the combined interests of the post-industrial economies of our time, which is the rest of the world, give or take. As much as we admire the effort you and your little cadre of freedom fighters put in to get you here, there are many things that you don't understand. November 30th is celebrated all around the world as the day the internet was set free." Donald's mouth hung open in disbelief. November 30th was when it happened. When the arch-nemesis of all free-flowing communication forever plunged the light of the internet into the deepest, darkest pit in the lowest circle of hell. Only freedom fighters as dedicated as Donald had a chance of fixing it. As Donald tried to explain, voice number 1 cut in again. "Nah, mate, you've got it all wrong. Net neutrality was not even a discussion outside of the USA. The day the FCC killed net neutrality in America, dozens of countries around the world designated internet access an essential service, forever protecting the free flow of information." Voice number 3. "He's quite right, you know, Donald. It took about 2 weeks for all the major tech companies to really understand. Then, one by one, they reconfigured their offshore disaster recovery solutions to become primary services, and moved operations to any of the countries waiting with open arms to welcome them. Amazon is based in Monaco now. Netflix moved to Scandinavia. Google went truly global and has a presence in every major city. And since no content can get out of the States, media companies from around the world stepped up, globalized their offering, and shut down communications to the USA. Even primary DNS services moved out of America." "So, no, you won't be killing Ajit today. Go home. When you get there, try to defect. Swim 1 mile straight out to sea from this location, and we'll pick you up in person. No one should have to accept substandard internet."